let my shop warm up, I'm going to do a quick video on some handle materials, some of the stuff I use, and I'll post in the description of a few people that I purchase my handle materials from, and as well as some of the stuff that I process myself, or talk about some of the stuff. So basically I put my handle material in a few different categories, like economy, which is more like unstabilized woods that still finish to be a pretty decent handle, but it allows me to make a more budget-friendly knife, as opposed to some of the exotic woods, as some of the dyed and stabilized woods that I use are just stabilized. So the economy that I'm talking about, like walnut, is a great wood to use for knife handles. Some old growth oak, high ring count, makes pretty decent handle scales as well. Let's see, so got the walnut. Mahogany makes a really good handle. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about within my economy handle. I have a whole box of stuff that I consider economy, something a little different. But basically, like bloodwood makes a really good handle, and it doesn't need to be stabilized. You can, but it's still oily hard wood, so it'll make a decent handle without ever having to be treated. And it's pretty easy to find if you have a furniture wood dealer or exotic floor dealer. You can find it, and it's not very expensive if you get it in turning stock. And that's what I do with a lot of my wood, like this big old block is just some turning stock, as well as this Wenge. This is a decent wood to get to. It's a little splintery to work with, but once it's finished, you're finished sanding, this will be smooth as hell. Alright, so going from my economy style wood up to what I call premium, would be some dyed and stabilized burl woods, some more exotic but not so expensive woods like this block of Purple Heart, or some dyed and stabilized, I think this is Curly Maple. Just basically, this is in the category of things that are less than $35 for me to purchase. So just there, you can get away with having, this is some beautiful dyed and stabilized Curly Maple. So you can get away every now and then with like getting some really nice handle materials within like a very good price point. So going from that on up, up is my high grade stock, and then I have a private stock because of the quality and uniqueness of the wood. So some of the stock that I think is very high quality and costs a bit more, stuff like Buckeye burl, and it's like natural state, like the real brown and gray stuff. I'm not a huge fan of the golden Buckeye burl. Usually go for that gray, but the Buckeye seems to have the best patterning, in my opinion, and burls. Redwood burl's pretty close, but then stuff like Curly Koa, the high figuredness of this is absolutely beautiful, and that stuff obviously attracts a higher price point. So that's the stuff you want to set aside for more expensive knives. You don't want to be spending, you don't want to be charging basically what it costs you in materials to make a knife. And then we can move up to some more. I have a lot of curly stuff because for one, it's fascinating to me. But I think this is redwood burl. Let's get a light on it. You can see they're really tiny eyes, but they're not super close together like a lot of burls. And you can still see some of the grain structure in this block. And so that's like, to me, is insane. And then desert ironwood is obviously we'll get, it's actually my private stock, or not private stock, but my high grade. So desert ironwood is one of those woods that don't need to be stabilized, and if you're trying to stabilize it, it's absolutely a waste of time. It's so oily and heavy. This block is heavier than like these two blocks weigh about the same. This is a block of unstabilized curly maple, and this is a block of unstabilized, because you can't really stabilize desert ironwood. But so the density of this is so much greater than that of like maple or other hardwoods that it doesn't need to be stabilized. Same with ebony, and I do have a cool stock of ebony. So, sure, some of you musicians will recognize this. I worked for a music store as a rental warehouse manager, and we decommissioned cellos, upright basses, and violins. And I know the value of ebony, so I decided to procure that since it was being trashed anyway. This is musical grade ebony, so it's really good ebony. Nice and dense, nice resonance. So this is what I use for my ebony. It's like $50 for a block this big for ebony. It's pretty expensive. So I go primarily with this, and I still have a contact at that store to access more. And then, so now, oh, there are some other handle materials that are lower grade, that well, not lower grade, but you can sell at a simpler price point just because of the makeup of them. This is burlap micarta. All micartas are pretty decent handle material. Finishing is a little difficult sometimes. It depends on how big the fibrous material is. You can see that that's not super big, but I do have where is it? I have like a couple blocks of fire hose micarta, and I mean, you can literally see the different strands inside there because of the way it's woven together. So that stuff's a little harder to finish. I had some seatbelt micarta and I'm still working on finishing, but that's a good option for handle materials. And there's, I'll make sure to tag the people that I get this stuff from. But I mean, here's some cross-cut micarta. It's from the micarta I'm showing you right now is unique micarta. Here's some white linen or ivory linen. This stuff is really cool. It's very translucent. pretty awesome. And then there's resins and stuff like that. This would be a higher grade resin. You can get away with some. This is hybrid. Basically, it's a dyed stabilized piece of burl wood with resin cast to fill the void of that burl wood being so different shaped. And then this is a resin cast. This is all from Hawk's Nest Customs. It's literally money and gold leaf cut up and put in resin cast with glow resin. Pretty amazing stuff. That is part of my private stock. All right, so speaking of private stock, that's what leads me next into what I'm going to talk about. My private stock is private stock because it is the rarest of the rare, or the most unique of materials that I personally have found to date. I have high preferences on a lot of handle materials. I prefer wood over anything else just because of the natural beauty of wood, but there are things that come across to me as pretty amazing that have stories. It's one of the reasons why I use the ebony fingerboards off of cellos, basses, and stuff. It actually has a story, and it's a cheaper way for me to use ebony. But so I'm gonna start it off with kind of the oldest materials that I have come across, and by oldest I mean early humanity, time when mammoths still roamed the earth. This is a hybrid resin cast of mammoth tooth. It's dyed and stabilized mammoth tooth. This predates technology, basically. So that's super rare. Like, it's mammoth teeth. And then I procured a bag of assorted mammoth tooth like inlays. I don't know if you can see that. To use to inlay knives, and these are all resin casted to fill the voids, stabilized and resin casted to fill the voids, because it's fossils, and I've got sets of fossils here, basically. And then, so age plays a big role in my definition of private stock handle materials. So that brings us to the next thing. This is an early plastic used for jewelry and such in France. I also got this from Hawk's Nest Custom. It's called Gaolith, and the way the lines are, you can't recreate that in resin. The way it's so precise, and just the layout is flawless. Like, here's a set of blue ones, and again, pretty translucent, but also it's a piece of history. Like, these were originally used for jewelry in early France. I think it was the late 1800s. I'll have to do some research and get back to you on that, or you can just tell me in the comments, if I'm wrong, which I probably am. So there's that. Moving on up is some vintage paper micarta. I think this is Westinghouse. I'll have to talk to Hawk's Nest. This is where I got it from him. So it's very tannish, but I'm going to cut it this way, and each individual block will have a nice pattern mixture of the material in the middle. And then we'll go, there we go. This is another super old. This is I think this individual block is 3,300 years old. It's ancient bog oak. So this stuff only develops where there are bogs. There are a few bogs in America. This is an American ancient bog oak. I have also in here a piece of 5,500-year-old ancient bog oak that I got from Hawk's Nest. And then another set of 3,300-year-old ancient bog oak scales. So those are my private stock. And then we'll talk about some of my private stock micarta. We'll start with this sheet. So micarta was introduced around World War II as an alternative to plastic, basically superplastic. They used it for aerial purposes originally, so it was the Air Force and stuff like that. I have a piece of World War II vintage micarta that was originally designed to use for planes. That stuff still has the military designation on it. It is also from Hawk's Nest Custom. There aren't many people with this stuff, and that's why I just put it in my private stock. It's just liner material. It's about a 1/4 inch thick, a little less maybe. But this stuff, it's super rare, it's super old, and it has a story. This is from World War II. Literally used this stuff. It was made during World War II. And you can see it's got some flexibility, but it's not going to break on you because of the fibers. It's very much like fiberglass. Yeah, all micarta is similar to fiberglass, but it's more safe for you to cut into and stuff like that. Resin's still not great for you, but cutting and working this stuff is safer than fiberglass because you're not working with that fiberglass. You're working with linen or God, what is it? Linen or other fabrics like fire hose or burlap. So that's the first one, and then I have some vintage Westinghouse brown micarta, also a liner. And if you go to my Instagram, I have used this stuff as well as sent it out a little piece to Nick Huff. I'll tag his YouTube and Instagram. He also makes knives, beautiful knives made by Nick. He used a piece of this recently. It's super old. I think this individual piece right here is from the 70s. I'll have to ask Hawk's Nest. I need to get this stuff written down so I can give you guys a better example of what it is. And then onto the wood version of my private stock. And these pretty much, I will let them go on a knife, but that knife isn't going to be cheap just because of the uniqueness of the materials. So we'll start with these. These are Madagascar ebony. So ebony isn't always just black. It can be this very tan and black, but it looks like a Rorschach painting. And to me, that is insane to have that material for a knife. And this is wide enough, I may be able to get 2 knife scales out of it. Still book matched. And then desert ironwood is one of my favorite woods. Especially the stuff with the what is it called? Especially the stuff with the lighter parts. It's called a certain thing. Has to do with sapwood. So especially the stuff with the sapwood. Because the sapwood allows that pattern to like really pop, and it allows the colors to blend a whole lot better, in my opinion. Because there are some dark browns, there are some blacks, then the tan and the lighter browns. So this book match set is my private stock. This is a very beautiful set. And then here's another very sapwood set. So yeah, down below I will try to have all my suppliers' names and stuff like that, and explain, or not, well, I'll have who they are and what materials I get from them. If you have any questions, just feel free to message me. Please like and subscribe. I'm starting this out, so your support really means a lot. I mean, I make knives primarily. That's the goal, and I want to. I've had questions from people, a lot of people who are getting into it. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm an expert, but I do have some tips and tricks that I am more than okay with sharing. I feel like this is a great platform to do that. So yeah, like and subscribe, share if you feel so inclined to. Anyway, thank you.